perfect conditions, and we're still in the lee of the island, so we've got fairly flat conditions. So, there's the pitons in the south of St Lucia. I'm just sailing past, and this is where we will start heading away from the land a bit more and getting a bit steadier wind instead of the fluky wind that we get down closer to the island. You can probably see on the plotter where we are. We're here, so I'll zoom out. So what happens with the wind and the currents when they hit the islands? They're generally coming from the east, and when they hit the island they tend to wrap around and go up here for a bit before continuing back to the east. So here we will have adverse currents, and when we arrive to the island, if we're coming south, we'll generally have a little bit of a current pushing us. Like yesterday we arrived in Rodney Bay and we had half a knot of current helping us as we went around the corner there. So our destination is Bequia, which is here. So we're going to sail down around St Vincent. Again, as we get to the top of the island, we'll have some currents helping us for a bit. We'll have some fluky wind down in the lee of the island, flat water, so it's nice sailing. And then we'll probably have some adverse current as we make our way across to Bequia at the bottom there. And we expect to arrive between 4 and 6 o'clock, depending on the conditions and the wind. At the moment we've got very nice conditions, flat water. That'll change in the next half hour. We'll start seeing a bit of swell and some waves once we clear the island. We have our full sails up, full main and jib. Just they're not hauled in tight, they're slightly released because the wind's on the beam. They could probably even go a little bit more out, but they're doing okay at the moment. And they should be fine. I don't think we need to take a reef in today. We'll probably see 20 knots or so of wind, you know, maybe 25 apparent at times, but if that's the case, we'll be fine as we are. There's another yacht just heading out of the pitons down towards St Lucia. We've got the fishing rod out. The new fishing rod, thanks to V and Shah, who have got a new to them boat, which has got about 2 fishing shops worth of tackle, rods, reels and so on board, and they don't fish, so that's worked out well for us because we've got ourselves a new rod and reel and a few lures. So, there's another cat behind us. It's just pulled out of St Lucia, so they'll probably sail down about the same speed as us, I guess. And V and Shah are back there on their new boat, and they'll be doing similar speeds as well, I guess. Moment we have a little bit more breeze, and I'm going to have to ease the sheets a little bit. We're seeing 28 knots apparent. In the gusts. We're back to our steady 20 knots. We'll see gusts coming around the corner of the island, where the wind speed just increases, partly because of the mountains there. It's being accelerated down through the valleys. But at the moment a nice steady 20 knots. Boat speed is 8.5 knots through the water. 8.5, but over ground still just 6 knots, or not even, 5.5, 6 knots because of that current. So as soon as we're out of that current, we'll pick up our speed and do a little bit better. And I can probably sheet the jib in a little bit more. I just released it because of that gust, just because we didn't need the sail sheeted in basically. But I'm going to crank back in on that winch in a second and trim the sail a little bit better. As you can see, the jib is fluttering slightly at the top, which is about how we want it actually. It's not too bad as it is, so I may even leave it like that. The main sail is, well, the traveller's in the centre. We usually just leave it there, just out of laziness. But it doesn't seem to make too much difference if we play around with the traveller, so we leave it centred, and the main is eased. At the moment we're on a beam reach, so it's pretty much until it's almost touching the side stay. In fact, it may be just touching on that third batten down. And the telltales on the leech of the sail are all flowing pretty much straight off the back of the sail. So that shows us that we've got a pretty good aerodynamic shape in the sail. The front of the sail is pointing into the wind pretty much, just a little bit off the wind. And the same with the jib. Now the jib's collapsing a little bit at the top, it needs sheeting in. That's just because of the wind strength and direction's changing, so I'm going to sheet that in a little bit for a while. And our speed's dropping accordingly, so knots, and our speed accordingly. As you can see, we have 10 knots true wind speed. We're still doing 5 or 6 knots through the water, but our speed over ground 3 knots. Basically 3 knots of current against us at the moment. So we'll be looking forward to getting out of that. I'll come back in on the boat. Zoom in, and we can see a few AIS targets around us, and we can see we're clear. There's no shoals or rocks or islands or anything here for us to worry about. We're just running on autopilot at the moment. We've got a waypoint set down at St Vincent, midway along the island, and if I click there I'll be able to see that speed through the water 5.7, 5.8 knots, speed over ground 3 knots, and the waypoint is 37 miles off, and at this rate it'll take us 14 hours to 15 hours to get there, but we won't be doing 2.5 knots over ground, so that'll change to about 8 hours once we clear the island and get our speed back up out of this current. Fingers crossed. It better change, otherwise we'll be arriving in the dark quite late. As I said, it's just the effect of the island that you get with the wind and the current as you come around, and sometimes if it's too bad, the wind's too light, we'll turn the motor on and motor through to keep the boat speed up. I can just see a gust coming here. You might be able to pick up on the water. It's a bit darker and a few white caps just out there, so that'll hit us in a minute and give us another 5 knots or so, and lift our boat speed up to probably around 8.5 knots through the water again. Just coming on us now. So we're seeing 21, 22. Yeah, beautiful sailing day though. It's perfect conditions. It's really nice sailing behind the islands because you have that flat water. I mean, it is a bit fluky and gusty and the wind changes direction quite a bit, but if you're not too fast about trimming your sails every time the wind changes like we are, we basically just trim them when we start, and so long as they're not flapping around or we're not too far off course, we don't really touch them that much. So we're pretty happy. If we're doing 7-8 knots through the water, there's not much point trying to trim much more. Anything more is a bonus, and maybe anything less, and we'll have a look at the sails and see if we can trim them up a little bit. But yeah, hopefully that current's going to dissipate pretty soon. It's not much fun when you have, you can see you're sailing well and you should be making good progress, but the current's pushing you backwards at a couple of knots. So, but that's sailing. What is it? So it's 10 to 9. Jen's having a sleep in. She'll have a good rest, and I'll probably have a bit of a nap later on at some stage. But it shouldn't be too big a day's sail anyway, probably about 12 hours, or you know, maybe 10 if we get a good run. And we'll be in Bequia. Is the plan at this stage, all things going well. We'll stop in Bequia a few days and then head down to the Grenadines, Mayru, Salt Whistle Bay, Union Island, do some kiting, catch up with some friends, and chill out there for a little while. Well, hopefully we're starting to get out of the current. We've come out into the open sea a little bit more now, so we're seeing 30 knots or so of wind, a little bit more than expected, but we're handling it fine. I've just put a reef in the Genoa, the jib, to just release a bit of pressure on the rig. So we were currently, well, we were seeing 9-10 knots through the water a minute ago, but the wind's sort of fluctuating a little bit. But, still seeing quite a bit of current, probably 2 knots against us. The jib needs shooting in a bit now, the wind's come forward, so I'll quickly put that in. Okay, so we're doing about 9.5 knots through the water, 7 over ground, so still a couple of knots of current against us. There's about a metre of swell. Mainly wind waves and a bit of chop. We're handling them pretty well. Occasionally you'll come over one, get a bit of a splash over the bows, but that's not really slowing us down too much, which is good. And pretty white cappy out there. The wind's bucked off a little bit now, kind of back down to around 25. Pretty nice sailing conditions really. There's St Lucia falling behind us. We just had a something big on the fishing rod, and it took the whole line out because we didn't have the brake set properly. So we spent about half an hour winding that in and sorting that out, and in the end there was nothing there. So if it was a big fish, it got off. But it's okay, we'll catch another one.